Welcome. This is International TEFL Academy's Facebook Live. Today we have Tamie Arietta with us from Hamburg, Germany. We're very excited. We're going to find out all about teaching in Germany, life in Germany, everything you need to know. Tammie's an expert. So at this point, I'll introduce her. Tamie, welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Cool. My name's Britton. I'm an admissions advisor here at International TEFL Academy. Today, we have Tamie Arietta from Hamburg. So we're going to find out what it's like to live in Germany. A little background about myself. I taught English in Prague, right nearby. Every country's a bit different with visas, jobs, how that works. So Tammie's going to fill us in all about Germany. So just introduce yourself a little bit, Tamie. Where are you from? What were you doing before Germany? What are you doing now?
Sure. So I am from San Diego, California. I have been in Germany since winter of 2014. Before that, I was a senior facilities engineer for a large corporation. And prior to that, I was a senior sales and marketing director. So completely different field now.
Totally different.
Yeah.
What inspired you to say, I'm done with the corporate life, I'm headed over to Europe?
Well, actually by nudge of a massive layoff. So about 5,000 of us around the world were laid off. And so I took that opportunity to, okay, severance package, I'm going to travel through Europe for a year. Two things I wanted, well, three things really. I wanted to take a German course, take the TEFL course through ITA, and volunteer in South Africa. And so I did that for almost a year. A week before my flight home, I canceled it and decided to stay in Germany and teach English.
So you stayed for a year, you did your TEFL certification, you accomplished all three goals there, South Africa as well?
I did, yeah, I did.
All right.
In a year, I took it kind of slow and wanted to see a lot, and that was my first time in Europe and Africa and all these different places. So I wasn't ready to go home when I canceled. I was at the airport going to Dublin, and so I'm not ready to go home. I don't want to go back to this corporate life right now. So yeah, I canceled it and stayed and started teaching in Hamburg, Germany.
I love that. Like straight out of a movie. You're at the airport, you're ready to go back to the States, and then you just have this moment like, I can't do it.
It was so true. I was in Dublin after I canceled. I'm like, what do I do now? I had no place to go. I didn't know what to do, but you kind of figure it out. And that's why the TEFL was so important, because it allowed me to do that.
That's an interesting moment. Yeah, so you don't go on your flight. You can go anywhere in the world with your TEFL certification, many countries in Europe, Asia, Latin America. So why Germany? You traveled all around Europe for a year. Why Germany?
I did. So I had 4 countries I wanted to visit, and I narrowed it down to Germany and Italy that I really, really liked and knew I wanted to come back to. So Germany, I felt it was just more comfortable. And Hamburg especially, it's this huge city, second largest city in Germany, but still has a very homey, comfortable feel with lots of opportunities for teaching. So for me, it was perfect, and I could kind of get into this European lifestyle without being so overwhelmed. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's cool. So you've been there for a while, almost 5 years now, is that right?
I have, yeah. So end of 2014, so almost 5 years or something. Yeah. It's a long time.
Working on 5, so sounds like you like Germany and you made the right move. So in terms of the TEFL certification class, you said that was one of your goals while you were gallivanting around for a year. Which certification class did you take for the TEFL, teaching English?
I took it through an affiliate partner of yours in Florence, Italy. So I took the course in Florence, Italy, and stayed there for about 5 weeks, and then got my certification and continued to travel.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there's 2 different routes you can take, 2 different types of TEFL class. Tamie took the 4-week in-person class in Florence. I also took an in-person class in Prague, Czech Republic, intensive in nature. We also have our online class, part-time, over 11 weeks. But Tamie, let's talk a little bit about this 4-week class. I can relate from my experience. What was it like? 4 weeks, how intense was it?
Well, it's intense. You nailed it. It's intense, and you want to sightsee, you want to do all this stuff, but this is so important for people that want to complete it and do it. But it's well worth the day to get in and start teaching kind of scenarios that happen. But it was fun. You meet great people. You meet people from all over the world, and you're in this together. So you bond, quicker than you would with just someone on the street. I'm not sure if you felt that when you were in Prague. If you're in this.
Definitely. Like, wake up, I would commute to my TEFL class with my classmates, take the train or walk there, and I was in the class all day with them. You go to lunch. After class, we'd go out for dinner, maybe grab a beer if we really needed something training. And Monday to Friday, 4 weeks, that was my life. The weekends were mine to explore Prague or whatever, but definitely a good way to bond with some people. I guess you learn a lot about people spending every minute with them for 4 weeks, right?
You do. And actually, some of my closest friends now are still from that TEFL course. Okay. So a friend that I talk to literally every day is a person that I met in that course. So without it, probably would have never met her.
Right. Yeah. A great way to immediately gain a network of friends when you're moving over to Europe, take an in-person class. We also have a huge alumni network, over 25,000 alumni getting certified with us. Many take the online class, about 80%. So don't fear if the online class is the route that you choose to take, because you can join our country-specific Facebook groups. For example, we have a group of all of our alumni in Germany who either took an in-person class or the online class. So you can connect with them even if you did take the online class. You won't be alone, that's for sure. Yeah.
With the forum that you guys have, it's awesome because there's so much interaction going on. There's constantly people asking questions, and other alumni answering and helping is great. Yeah.
Especially before going overseas to Europe, it's great when you're taking the online class just to see the discussions that are happening with teachers who are currently in Germany or whichever country, just to see what life is like for teachers there. Okay, you won't be alone when you're overseas, no matter which class you take. But let's talk about the process of actually finding work. So you took the 4-week class in Florence. Later on, you decide to move to Germany and make a home there. How is it that you found teaching work in Germany?
So for me, I have kind of a unique situation. I really wanted to work in the private sector, meaning teach privately. And so I started a company to do that, to help other teachers teach in the private sector. So in Germany, you have to work for a freelance visa, you have to work in a language school, you have to have enough letters of intent. So you're going to be working in multiple different places. And to do that really is good old Google. To find those in that area, if you pick that city, Google those schools, and interview best is in person, But what I did is when I was here, I worked with a lot of kitas, which are equivalent to kindergartens, and marketed myself there to get hired to work with the families. So very similar to what a person would do if they go out to a language school to apply. You go in person, you email, and try to find those jobs. The good thing in Germany, I can say, is that they're saturated with language schools, but there's such an opportunity and a motivation by Germans to learn English. So it's a good place to be if you're teaching English.
Right. That's a question from students as they're considering where to go teach. I say, yeah, Germany has a great teaching market. And they say, I've been to Germany. A lot of them speak English already. So there are job opportunities there?
There are, most of the time I still get by with speaking English. But the thing is, they're very motivated. So whether that's for, business English, for international communications, for purpose of traveling, there's still a need to learn English. And I think that makes it brings a value to it because they're motivated and they want to do it. It's not a necessity to learn it. I mean, most people in Germany learn English from preschool. They don't get to practice. So as they get older and they go through college and they want to, maybe go to a university elsewhere, they don't have a chance to practice, and that's where we come in. or business. There's a lot of companies that hire English teachers because they want to offer that to their employees.
Absolutely. I had a similar experience in Prague teaching adults. I knew about 5 words of Czech going over there that I learned on YouTube. And so all my students were pretty good at English already. They'd learned English growing up through school, but they did not have the opportunity to speak English, especially with a native English speaker, with the opportunity to be corrected when they make simple mistakes that otherwise they might not catch. So plenty of job opportunities in Europe. Face-to-face interviewing is generally how that works. Now, you mentioned language and your German, so-so. You've been there for almost 5 years. How's your German coming?
You know what? My German's pretty decent. I don't like to speak German just because I get, oh, that's cute. That sounds sweet. And no, German is a harsh language. Like when you say something, it sounds pretty tough. But so the nice part is that if you do have conversations with people in German, it tends to come in, back to English. So you do this little dance back and forth. But ultimately it comes out where you're from, what do you do here? And that's perfect opportunity. I teach English, and for me, I have my business cards. So I found a lot of students that way just by that little banter back and forth. But ultimately, it ends in speaking to German because they want to practice, they want to practice English. So if you try to speak German, they know you're not a native, so they want to speak English. So it's great for teachers.
Definitely.
Not so good for learning German.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking German, they're like, this is an American. I know it. Let me use this opportunity to practice my English.
All the time. All the time. I still get them. Hi, I need a harsher sound to my German.
Sure. Well, the news is for anybody considering going over to Germany, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tamie, we all know at least one word in German. How do you say hello in German?
Hello.
There we go.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Danke.
In Hamburg, you say moin moin. So it's moin moin is just a greeting, just hello, Yeah. Simple. Okay. Or tschüss. Tschüss is just goodbye. Tschüss. And they sing it. So they go like an octave higher. Tschüss.
I love that.
At first, it's really uncomfortable. And you get used to it.
Definitely. So regional dialects and everything. But again, don't need to know the language. Fortunately, many people want to speak English. Not everybody speaks English in Europe, that's for sure, but you can always find somebody to help give you directions or whatever you need. Now, we've talked a bit about the language, about your TEFL course, finding a job. Another big topic with teaching in Europe, especially with Americans, visas. So what is that like in Germany? I know it can be, there's many steps to the process. If you had to explain this to somebody in simplified terms over a couple minutes, what's the process like in Germany?
It's challenging. So we think, with Germans, they're very structured and organized, but it's not the case. So really what I would suggest is know the city you're going to, be extremely prepared, and expect delays. So freelance, the type of work that we would do as most teachers come to English, teaching English in Germany is under a freelance permit. And that freelance permit is a very small portion of what they process. So if you go to a small town, chances are they've never processed that permit. So you're going to run into delays, as opposed to maybe a bigger city like Berlin or Munich, So it's challenging. It is definitely possible and worth the hurdles that you may have to jump through. But just know the city and expect that it's not created equal. In Hamburg, we have 7 district offices that you can apply, and every single office has a different process. So that's where the challenge, comes in if you don't know your city.
Okay.
But totally worth it. I don't want to scare anybody because it's amazing.
Well, this would probably be a good time to say, so you taught in Germany for a while, and just to touch on visas quickly again, I mean, you can get a freelance work visa in Germany. There might be many steps to get there. It can be complicated. But the good news is you can get a freelance work visa as an American in Germany, and that's not the case in every country in Europe or around the world. So your work will be 100% legal. You will be living in this country 100% legally. And again, that's not always the case. So just follow the steps. That's why we have an advising team here at International TEFL Academy. And Tamie, tell us a little bit more. You were talking earlier, you started some sort of business there in Germany about visas. Can you tell me more about that?
So I originally started Speakeasy Language Academy for myself to teach privately. I wanted a professional platform to be able to market myself. And when I applied for the freelance permit, they made me register this academy, this company. So it turned into a much bigger thing than I expected. During that process, getting my visa was very challenging. So things are outdated online, you read in forums, but it's maybe someone's one-time experience. So it became very challenging. And after that point, I realized I needed to help other people get their visas and not leave in tears or have to go multiple times. So we started Expat Launcher. And Expat Launcher focuses on everything for a person to come to Germany and to legally live here and get settled with their permit and be able to legally work. Whatever type of visa they want, language, student, work sponsorship, freelance. Most of our core clients are freelance coming over for English teaching.
Okay. Several types of ways that you can get to live or study or work in Germany. Fortunately for our students, we have experts out there like yourself who can help them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was similar for me in the Czech Republic, where you go over there on a tourist visa, it lasts 90 days, and you're like, in these 90 days, I'm going to find a job, I'm going to find a place to live, and I'm going to get this visa, somehow file that in a country where I don't speak the language, but many people before you have done this before. That was one of the biggest surprises for me going over to Europe, was how many people are already teaching there. I mean, there are dozens of language schools in all major cities in Europe. I worked for one of the largest language schools in Prague, and I mean, there was over 100 English teachers at my one school alone, which blew my mind. So there is that. In terms of the teaching work in Germany, the types of jobs available, is it mostly at formal language schools? Is it private tutoring, online teaching? What's the mix there?
So there definitely is a mix. I mean, you have to be mindful of what permit you have. So if you have a freelance permit, then you are allowed to teach online. You're allowed to work in a brick and mortar type of language school. You're allowed to take private tutors. You have to do multiple things. You can't work for one school. So that's why a lot of people, they work in language schools and teach on the side. They teach online. Because the permit requires you by law as a freelancer to work multiple places, and to get that permit, you need letters of intent from multiple schools. Work sponsorship, a little different. You work for one school, and solely that school is providing your work sponsorship. So there are different ways to do it, but majority of people and the smoothest process as an English teacher coming would be the freelance permit. Yeah.
Okay, so that's right. And good to know. So not an easy process, but again, you can get a visa to live and work legally in Germany as an American, Canadian. It's a little different by citizenship, but you're out. So we did have a question that came in from one of our live viewers. So Dustin was asking, is it only a TEFL certification that's required to teach in Germany? Do you need a bachelor's degree? How does that work?
Good question, Dustin. So it's not required to have a bachelor's degree. If you are going to work in the public system at a university, that yes, you are required to have, or work sponsorship for teaching English, you should have a bachelor's. For majority of people teaching in a language school, private tutoring, the TEFL is preferred. You do not need a bachelor's. So you'll find plenty of jobs. If you come here with your TEFL certification and no bachelor's degree, you'll find plenty of jobs. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, the key with Europe is going to be going to the right city and country where there's jobs available, and the timing as well. So those countries in Europe, you want to be there in September or January. That's when the most job opportunities are available. And again, you look at a country like Germany where, as Tamie tells us, lots of work available, and you can get the legal freelance or different types of visas there. So that's good. Most important thing, native English speaker and the TEFL certification so that you can prove I know how to teach. I have had the training to do that. Now, the financial side of things, what kind of money can someone expect to make while teaching and living in Germany?
It's going to vary. So not all schools are created equal. So I see people that it's as much as you put into it, right? So you can't work full-time in a language school, so you're not going to expect a 40-hour work week making $3,000 a month. But you can sustain a living, whether that's $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 a month. You can sustain yourself living here by working multiple schools. So it's a tough question to answer because everyone's different. So, and the language schools range from 16 euros an hour to 40 euros an hour. Private lessons, I can say, because that's what I really focused on, is where I can make the most money because I can charge a higher rate because I go to the client, I customize lessons. If you specialize in something, say if you go to a language school and teach business English, that tends to pay more. Or if you do that in a private sector, it will pay more, and it cuts out the language school.
Okay. What do you mean by cuts out?
So if you teach privately, then you are going to do the marketing yourself, preferably professionally. That's why we start a company. But if you do it yourself, then you're going to contact those businesses on a professional level to teach them without going through a language school. So if you were to do that, you know, for example, I do that and I can charge a doctor that I taught for almost a year. I charged him about 60 euros for a 60-minute class. If I was to go through a language school to teach him, I would get maybe a quarter of that. So, you know, it depends on really kind of the language school you go to. The big name schools tend to pay the least, and then it goes down from there. There are a lot of companies that will pay, you know, 25 euros for a 45-minute class. But it just depends on what city you're in.
Right. Okay. To really simplify things here in terms of salaries, cost of living, are you going to make enough money in Europe? You're not going to get rich teaching English in Europe. You're not going to be saving thousands of dollars, but you will be making enough money to pay the bills and live a good life if you are teaching full time. Now, if you're in a bigger, more expensive city, say Berlin, Germany, Munich, exactly. You're going to make a higher wage to compensate for that higher cost of living. Yeah. Whereas in Prague, I was making about $12 an hour, which doesn't sound like much, but in Prague, that goes a long way. Yeah. So depending on the cost of living for that country, you will be compensated for that, and you will break even. I had a nice apartment near the city center. I was traveling a lot on the weekends, living a good life, but not getting rich. If you're looking to make the big bucks, head to Asia. That's where that is best. All right, so we talked about some money. Now, let's just talk about some fun stuff. We talked about visas. Tell me on coming to Hamburg. Why would I want to teach English in Hamburg?
I really love Hamburg, like I said in the beginning, because it's very comfortable. It's the second largest city, but it doesn't feel like Berlin. When you go to Berlin, it's a city. Hamburg is just it's very charming. You can see something new every day. You go to a different area. Some of my favorite places are downtown by the Rat House, down by the Elbe, which is the river. We have a little beach there. Hafen City. I mean, there's just so much history. Yeah, I love it. It's really a fun place. There's nightlife. Reeperbahn is famous.
Okay. And what's a rat house?
Rat House is the parliament. So it's the parliament where it's just the main kind of parliament building in the city, but it's so beautiful. If you haven't seen it, you have to Google Rat House in Hamburg because it is so beautiful. And in the back, they have just this beautiful fountain of this lady. Can't explain it. It was one of my first things I saw when I came here and fell in love with it. And was taking a German course, and every day on break I would walk by this thing and just in awe of how beautiful it was, because in San Diego we don't have buildings like that. So for me, it's my own personal little spot that I love.
Okay. The name, if I was in Chicago, where I live, and hey, come to the Rat House, like, it doesn't sound very good to me, but.
Yeah, I know. It's a rat house is, yeah, just the fancy, well, the German name for their parliament building.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the German people. Have they been very receptive or hospitable in your experience to Americans teaching there?
German. So no offense to any Germans that are watching. Germans are a little standoffish. I have to be honest. That was, other than the weather, the people were kind of it took me back a little bit. And, oh, okay, I'm surprised. But once you get to know Germans, they are friends for life and the most sincere, nicest people you ever meet. It's just that initial meeting, hello, how are you? Can I help you? Open the door. It doesn't happen here. Southern Germany, I think they're a little bit more friendlier. Northern Germany, I just blame it on the weather. I say people are frozen for like 8 months out of the year, and then summer comes and they kind of, their face to frost, and then they're super friendly.
Okay.
But I think for teaching, it's great, because if you do get to have that back and forth banter with them, then it's a perfect opportunity to say why you're here. And that's typically how you can find students or find work too, because you're making a connection with people. Yeah.
Sure. It's much different in the States, right? I mean, when you're in Canada as well, I don't know about England, but at least in the States, like, you pass by somebody and you get a smile. How's it going? You know, that's a very common thing. But in Central, Eastern Europe, that's just not as common, right? Once you become friends with somebody, you're in, but they're not necessarily going to wave to random strangers on the street and smile at you. Would you agree?
Yeah. They totally don't. I smile at everybody. I even had about a month ago, I was smiling at this old couple, and she just said to him, like, she's smiling at me. Like, she's like, I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. So you have to know that coming into it. And I've talked to a lot of expats. I work with hundreds of expats all the time, and most of them will say that Germans are very standoffish. There are a few that go, they're better than where I live, you know, in the States. But coming from California, most of cities in the US, people always wave, and they smile and ask you how you are. And here you just have to get used to that's not the way. It's not they're not rude, they're not being mean. It's just that's their culture. They kind of are very distant, stick to themselves, and go about their day.
Right. I'll talk with people, even friends. Hey, I was over in Europe for a week, and I didn't think that the waiters and waitresses were very friendly, and they'll like define the whole people of a country based on a few limited experiences that they've had in that country. So take this as a challenge to get beneath that initial hard layer to really get to know the people, and teaching English is a great way to do that. Teaching kids and teaching adults, there's going to be a huge difference there. With teaching kids, it's much more games and songs and energy, whereas with teaching adults, I chose to do that for my own reasons, wanted to make friends, wanted to get to know the culture, much more conversational English lessons. Why is it that you chose to teach adults, Tamie?
I taught young learners as well.
Okay.
I went more the business route with English, or conversational. So I would host conversational hours in coffee shops for up to 6 people, charge them a very affordable rate, but still my hourly rate was pretty good, to meet people. I mean, living here, there are tons of forums to meet people. There are tons of websites to meet up and things like that you can connect with other, expats. But to connect with students, I mean, it's a good way to meet people, and then kind of a word of mouth, it grows, and then you meet other people that you can teach or become friends with.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're getting a little bit low on time here. We had another question that came in from our live audience, again, about finding jobs. So some people get intimidated by this idea of interviewing for jobs in person. And that's how it is in most countries. In Europe, Latin America, Southeast Asia, you interview for jobs in person. That's how it was for me as well. So can you just tell us, once you get to Germany in particular, what is the most efficient, best way to get work and quickly?
I mean, other than, there is a procedure with the visa that you have to go through before you can start working. To find jobs quickly is, prior to coming, If you're 2 weeks, 30 days max, I would say out, you can start emailing these schools to let them know when you arrive, let them know when you're ready for an in-person interview. I myself, through Speakeasy, most of my time I'm Skyping people and we'll set up things before. So it's not impossible to find jobs before you come, but the route is come here. Even if you're here, email it first. Allow the school a week to 2 weeks to review, because we get inundated with, you know, CVs. If you haven't heard back from that school within about 2 weeks or so, then contact them again. In person is best, door to door. You know, you don't want to be pushy. You don't want to call 10 times. You don't want to email them 5 times and then go in. But that's just a different way here. You go in person, you set up that interview, and you meet them and go over your CV and try to get the job.
Right. And a lot of people be as an admissions advisor, like, so you're telling me I go over to Europe without a job. What happens if I don't find a job? And again, the key here is going to the right country and city where we know there's job availability, and going at the right time of the year. So that's why here at ITA, we have a whole team of student affairs advisors or job search advisors that you can work with. Whether you take the online class or an in-person class, you will always have a job search advisor here that you can work with to provide you with this kind of advice, where if you want to go teach English in Sweden, it's going to be challenging. They're very good at English there already, whereas a country like Germany or the Czech Republic, there is still that demand for English teaching. Go there in September, go there in January. You're not interviewing for one job and, hey, I hope I get it. You're interviewing for multiple jobs, collecting job offers, and choosing from there where you want to work. Now, let's close out with this one, Tamie. So I'm sure you have many friends, family, acquaintances back in the States who say, you know, it sounds like a cool idea teaching abroad. I'm not sure if it's right for me. What do you say when people ask that? Like, what advice would you give to someone who's considering teaching English overseas?
I would say do it. If you have an opportunity to do it, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't second guess it. Do it while you can, because it's probably one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced. And had I not gone through ITA to get the TEFL, I wouldn't be here right now. So do it, prepare yourself, research the city, like you said, research where you're going, know what to expect, have enough money saved, you know, for that, so you know why, because it's gonna take a while to get the jobs lined up and get your permit. So I just can't say highly enough, just do it. It's amazing.
There will never be a time in life to move to a brand new country and start a new job, start a new life. But for me, I was working a boring desk job, and I said, you know, if I don't do this now, I don't know that I ever will. And I didn't want to live with this regret. What would have happened if I'd done this? So easy for us to say, those who have done it, it is work. It can be challenging at times to move to a new country where you may or may not speak the language and start a new job. But that's part of why I wanted to do it, was the challenge and growing through that. So enough about that. Tamie, thank you so much for joining us. Is it late? Is it like time for you to get to bed there in Germany? I don't know.
Well, it's still 8 o'clock, but it's still light out, so it's okay. It's not a big deal.
All right. What's going on this weekend in Hamburg? Big plans?
Easter. It's about Easter, so some Easter celebration and going out to pick apples. And the cherry blossom trees are blooming in full bloom here. It only is about 2 weeks a year that this happens. So so I'm gonna go pick some apples. Not that exciting of a weekend, but it's still really neat.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Opportunities. Pick some apples, make some American homemade apple pie for your German friends there. What an opportunity. Cool. Well, thanks again, Tamie. Pleasure to speak with you, and enjoy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you guys for all you do. It's been amazing. So yeah, have a good Easter.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.